Are you sure that, I mean, yes, of course, it is important that the president does what he needs to do.
Yes.
And, there'll be questions as to why it is that it's taking so much time to fill these spaces. But if we look at the case of Ondo State,
yes.
where I think the resident electoral commissioner that serves Ekiti was also able to serve Ondo State as well, and they just had their own elections.
Let me tell you.
And it seemed that it went okay. It went rather peacefully.
Well, you should have mentioned Edo State rather than Ondo State. Edo State, because Ondo and Edo State had the elections about the same time, and those were some forms of face saver for the inconclusive line of elections that we've had so far. Now, well, I don't know whatever case that will be made for the fact that we had an election in Ondo State and then perhaps there are no contentions like you have in Edo State. What we are saying is that, for goodness sake, we are not in shortage of men of integrity. You don't unnecessarily create. You don't know the allegations before that trailed the Ondo elections. It's okay. It's commendable that those of them who have who participated in the Ondo elections have taken it easy. But you see, there were a lot of accusations regarding what happened in Ondo State. But what we're saying is that, for goodness sake, let us just have compliance with the law. There are men of 35 years old and above in this country, in the civil society, in the trade unions, that are competent to man these positions. There can only be a conspiratorial, understanding or rather perception to this unnecessary delay.
Our concluding moments with you now. What do you think we should be doing to ensure that the presidency does what is right? We understand that INEC is saying that is not within their purview. They have no bearing whatsoever on appointing recs. So that's strictly with the presidency.
But it's not crying enough.
They're not crying enough.
Yes, they should say that they are incapacitated and that INEC right now is running foul of the law. Right now, INEC is not properly constituted.
Can they be sued?
Yes, it depends. It depends on how you formulate the course of action. One thing is this: what we have. I'll answer your question and I'll tell you what we should be doing now. Mm-hmm. But we seem to have a complicit National Assembly, a complacent National Assembly, and a docile National Assembly.
How are they
complacent? Oh yes. In September 27, 2016, Senator Ekweremadu presiding there was a resolution of the Senate directing the president to appoint specifically 20 resident electoral commissioners. And then there is this defiance. When you talk about, impunity, it seems to be referred to as only to those who operate the government and perhaps when you're dealing with corruption. But you don't see the magnitude of the damage you do to a system when you disrupt legal culture. You don't see that. Now, you don't consider it that it's an unnecessary interference with the operations of a constitutionally independent body like INEC. INEC, by section 153 of the Constitution, is an independent body.
Do you think
by section 153 and specifically section 158, an independent body. Your refusal to comply, to make it, compliant with the Constitution, is a direct interference with that independence, and that's a very grievous offense that is impeachable. I hate to say that, but you see, I shouldn't be saying that that's impeachable. It is the National Assembly that should say that. There is this, this zeitgeist that pervades the polity, particularly the National Assembly. This zeitgeist.
So what do you want? If the Senate has spoken and asked the presidency to do what it ought to do, or the president to do what he ought to do, how are they being complicit in this? And
how would you imagine, from September 2016 to date, nothing has been said. No pressure, no state of emergency. Because we haven't been able to drum enough the danger. Oh, no, no, no. You mean, just take a look at the history of our elections. 1964, 65 general elections, Western regional crisis of 1962. Elections have been the basis of the worst forms of, conflicts we've had in this country. Even the biggest of conflicts in 1967, it started with elections. Now, you see, there is nothing like creating confidence in the electoral process. And that is what is hugely lacking. You wonder why, however vilified the former president has been, you wonder why he's been, commended everywhere, invited all across the world to deliver speeches, because the man, first and foremost, delivered on the independence of the independent and National Electoral Commission. He delivered on the independence. He appointed a man that's unknown to him. He appointed a man that exercised full independence. And then look at the crop of resident electoral commissioners you had at that time. And then they managed an election that saw, the victory of an opposition element. Now, that independence, that quality to which Nigeria has been endeared to the world as a shining example to the rest of Africa is fast eroding. In fact, it has been eroded. Something urgent, and that's why I believe that the president should declare a state of emergency in the presidency. Get these men in less than 7 days. Let us have resident electoral commissioners in the 36 plus 1 states that we have in this country immediately.
Well, Mr. Frank Tietie, I think that your point has been very well made. Thank you very much for coming on Sunrise Daily. We've been speaking with Mr. Frank Tietie, who is a legal practitioner.